Rasta Challenge 2021.
So, we are today at Okawa Koi Farm, and we have here in front of us the Rasta Koi entrance for this year that are going to the mud pond. I think a very nice, interesting selection of koi, and you viewers or members of Rasta Koi can be the judge of that. But I think it's going to be an interesting one for this year. The fish range from, I think, about 38, 39 cm through to 44 cm for the biggest of them. And we basically have 3 Sakai in here, 1 shower, sorry, 4 Sakai rather, and 1 shower and 1 kahaku. So I think it's going to be an interesting one. So here's the shower, just in case anyone's wondering, and then other than that, 4 Sankis. So we have 1 Sankey there, another Sankey, so yeah, quite an interesting bunch of fish, I think. Now, looking at these fish, what I think will be the bonus prize winner for this autumn when they become Nisai will be actually the biggest Sankey of the bunch. I think is what I think is the strongest fish in there, but also the kahaku I think is particularly interesting. The bloodline of this is different to the bloodlines of old with Okawa, but I think this fish could change an awful lot in the mud pond through to Nisai, and I think could become really, really nice. So it may be the case, in my opinion, that the kahaku could end up being the best fish come Nisai, but for me the one that stands out, and if you have chosen this one and it turns out to be the winner, you will get a bonus prize. And obviously if it then becomes the winner overall from the whole event, you get the trip to Japan. So this anyway will be the bonus prize winner from this group. So thank you for watching. Okay, so welcome today to Matsuri Koi Farm, the Rasta Koi event, and this is the first group of fish. Now, I think the level of fish this year is, I think, undoubtedly better than last year, and so far that's pretty much across the board with all the fish we've seen. Now, interestingly enough, I was just talking with Hiro-san, who wants to remain off camera, about these fish, and it was quite an interesting discussion really, insofar as quality of the fish goes and bloodlines of the fish. In this instance this year, these fish have got a lot of Dainichi blood, and he feels that these fish are a very good representation, in particular 3 of them, a very good representation of that bloodline. Those 3 fish being this one, and also this one. Now, this fish, as you can see, doesn't really have much sashi, but later on I think the colour will thicken, the sashi could become deeper on that fish as it becomes bigger. In terms of body structure, they are certainly, I think, 4 of them are very much the same, and that being this one and this one also. This is probably the strongest body structure, but as an overall package, I would say, in terms of colour, kiwa, sashi, body type, pattern and so on, the overall package of how the fish potentially are going to work out, I think personally, it's going to be between this fish to be the nicest when knee sight, and this fish also. But because of what Hiro-san's opinion is, I will go with his decision as being the bonus prize winner. So his feeling with this fish is that this fish, its strong points are the white area behind the head on the shoulder, the white area coming up around to the front of the dorsal, the white area on the back. He said as far as he's concerned, this is the perfect Inazuma pattern. And also from quality perspective, this fish has got all the right attributes. He said the sashi style is particularly good, perfect, the key was really good as well. So in his opinion, he said as Nisai, this is potentially the best Tattigoi. So if from this group you've chosen this fish, then essentially you have, assuming the fish works out the best from this group in the autumn, you win the bonus prize for this group. Okay. So here we have the second group of Matsuri Rasta Koi, and again a good group, but in this instance, in this group, there's one fish that is a higher level than the other fish, and it will make things a little bit more interesting to see how that fish actually stands up compared to the other fish, whether it actually turns out to be the best one because of being the highest price or not, as the case may be. Anyway, in terms of body type, this is probably, I think, the strongest one. It's got the strongest backbone out of the group, and I think this is particularly good in terms of its quality points, pattern. Kiwa Sashi Star is really nice, body's good, the overall package is very good. This one could become really good. I think it's good Tattigoi. It's a little bit more mysterious or unpredictable in terms of sashi type, Kiwa, but I think could become very, very good when it becomes Nisai. The others, I think this one is a very safe bet, easy to predict in basically every respect. Also, I think this one, again, it's quite predictable and safe. But for me, it really comes down to this one, which, as it happens, is the fish that is a higher value fish than the rest of the group, and this one. And I think whilst the higher value one might work out being the strongest body fish with the best future as Nisai, I think this one, pattern style, is the nicest, and I think the body structure is still very good. And I think in this instance, I'm going to say that this one will be, if it wins, it will be the bonus prize winner in the autumn. Thank you for watching. Welcome to Rasta Koi, and today we are at Ueno Koi Farm to take pictures and movie of this year's entrance to the Rasta event. This is actually the second time of coming down here to do this, unfortunately. The first time I got pictures and movie of everything, and then unfortunately I managed to delete all of the movie clips off the memory card. So we've come back now to redo the movie part of it. The fish aren't in as good a condition as they were the first time around because they've been moved to a different pond for growing for this summer, and they've had to be salted up to fix their condition up. So they're not as good as they were when we did the photographs, but they will soon bounce back from that now that they are in this pond for growing on through this summer. Anyway, looking at these fish, in terms of body structure, growth potential, this one really, I think, has got the most size potential out of the bunch. And I think aside from that, I think the level of the fish, I think, is really nice on all of these this year. And they are quite comparable. Colour type on this one's a little bit different to the others. It's a softer kind of colour compared to the others. So it'll be interesting to see how that one fares. This one has got the kind of pattern, I think, that later on is going to be really interesting, because whilst the colour side of it is kind of more front end heavy, the back end of the fish is more sumi heavy, and I think when the sumi comes up on this fish, it will make the fish a lot more interesting and a lot more attractive later on, because when the sumi comes up, it will give it that front to rear balance that the fish needs, but at the same time it will leave enough white skin showing on the fish to make the fish, I think, very interesting in the future. And the same, I think, can be said of this one too. This fish has got that same kind of imbalance of kahaku pattern, and then also the sumi that will then come up and put that balance back into perspective again later on. For me though, the two that are really the most interesting are this one, which has got a little bit of colour damage since I first saw it, but that should soon fix up. And this one, which, as I said, has got the most size potential. I think, whilst the pattern's not so exciting though, I think the body structure alone on this, and I think how refined and nice the sumi's going to be, like the style of sumi kiwa, that style of things, although there won't be that much white skin left on the fish when it's bigger, I think this will actually be very attractive come knee size. And consequently, if you have chosen this fish and this one becomes the winner from this group in the autumn, this will be the one that gets our bonus prize from this bunch of fish. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Aside from that, I think the style of this one, I think, is the sort of pattern that people would usually go for. And again, this one is that same offset pattern that gets put back into balance by sumi later on. So there's certainly a lot of interest, I think, with these fish. This is probably, I would imagine, will be the one that most people would go for. So if I'm not, well, we shall see, but I think that when everyone has chosen their fish, this will probably be revealed as the one that most people put in as their first choice from the showers. But we shall see. Anyway, enjoy and see you in the autumn. Thank you. So, welcome to Omosako Koi Farm, and today we have the entrance for the Rasta Koi event. And as you can see, a very, very mixed style of fish, but I think all of these are very promising despite their different appearances. Now, on face value, I think this one is the most attractive one and also the most predictable, but whilst that may be the case, other fish such as this one has not got much sumi up and looks very unpredictable, but in actual fact there's a lot of sumi underneath the skin with this fish, so a lot of activity will happen with this fish later on. And the same really goes for this one also. The underlying sumi pattern looks to be well placed, and I think the quality of the sumi will be good, so I think this is also a very nice prospect, albeit a very unpredictable one. This one comes back into the realms of being safe, but I think at the same time this fish will be a very nice pattern later on as well. And then you've got this one here, which is, to be fair, it's a very good all-round package of what will come and what you can see right now. I mean, it's got everything that you would look for a future fish. There's plenty of activity of sumi going on underneath, but at the same time there's enough pattern already up to draw your interest in straight away with that particular fish. Now, as far as these fish go, the ones that I think will become the biggest, I think, is this one and this one. I think will become the biggest of the two. For me, however, The one, I can only award one fish as the Rasta Challenge winner, and for me, I think it's going to be this one. The reason being, I think it's going to get a lot of sumi around the middle part of the fish, but the head is particularly nice on it. The skin I think is particularly nice, and I think that this fish later on as Nisai will surprise people with the progress that it will make as Nisai. So if you've chosen this fish, then you will be the bonus prize winner from this bunch of fish. So, thank you very much for watching, and let's see what happens in the autumn. Welcome to Yume Koi Japan, and today we are at Sakai Company, and here we have a selection of fish with a slight difference to all of the other ones that are in the event this year, insofar as these 6 fish will all reside at Yume Koi Japan for raising until the autumn, which I think will add another angle of interest for people. Perhaps there'll be those people that will want a fish to be raised in our ponds, and there will be perhaps other people that will specifically not want a fish that's raised in our ponds and will want something that's in the mud pond, perhaps because they feel that that is the best place for the fish to be raised. So it's a particularly, I think, interesting additional angle to it all this year. So here we have 3 Sakai and 3 Kohaku. The size is very different, 2 of the fish being very late bred, so they are much smaller than the others. But in the great scheme of things, I'm not really expecting that to affect the fish's development through to the autumn. I still think the small ones are going to make a decent size, although naturally not as big as what the big ones are. Now, in regards to these fish, we have, in terms of body structure, realistically I would say this Sakai has the strongest structure for getting big, carrying body weight the right way, along with this 2-step. I think the body structure is really nice on that as well, and this one too. Now, aside from that, we also have this one. I think the body is particularly nice, although not as strong or tight in its line as the other 3 fish, but still very good. I think this is a really interesting fish. I think the colour and sashi of the fish is really nice. So for me, I think it's something that's very easy to become really attractive in the future. And then moving on to the 2 smaller ones, these late bred Tosai. We have this Sankey here. Pattern is quite nice, but the thing I find most interesting with this one, aside from the sumi quality, is the tail tube area. Because if you look at the fish, as far as its basic pattern goes, the back end of the fish is very lonely. There's not a lot of pattern there. It's basically, as a Kohaku, it would have virtually no interest from people that were looking to buy fish. But as a Sankey, this fish, this sumi area, coming up later on, which I'm sure it will do, will add an awful lot of interest to the fish, and I think will transform the fish in people's eyes. And really, for a slightly different reason, the same can be said of this Sankey, because this one doesn't really have an awful lot of pattern, and it doesn't really have an awful lot of sumi either. But the sumi you can see on the fish is basically all on the white areas, but there's quite a lot around this side of the tail tube, around the back of this part of the pattern, on this side of the dorsal as well. And I think this fish, whilst it might look like it doesn't have a lot of sumi, and whilst it might look like the pattern's not really enough either, I think as Nisai, I think this is a really interesting and exciting prospect. Sashi, colour, kiwa, that side of things is really nice, and despite being small, the body type is actually very good. However, I can only choose one bonus prize winner from each group, and in terms of this particular group, I am going to have to say that this Sankey, if in the autumn this is the best fish of the bunch, this will be the bonus prize winner from the Sakai company group. So let's wait and see what happens. Roll on October, November time. Thank you for watching.